But the chips are red.
Okay. Here we go. Legolas by Laura. I have no idea what the fuck this is. This is all Kaga. Say hi, Kaga.
Hi.
Goddamn it, Kaga.
It's all Kaga. This is all Kaga. So if this is stupid as a piss, I'm not gonna blame Laura. I'm blaming Kaga.
Because who can do that?
Because it's called blame shifting, and I'm the master of it. It's my thing.
I'll accept the blame.
So here we go. Legolas by Laura.
By Kaga.
And wait, I would like you to read it with the punctuation. So read it as it is written.
So phonetically.
If you could.
You want phonetic?
Yes.
Okay. Legolas was riding along the woods, and one day he found a baby whapped in calf. So he got off his horse and went to the baby, and then Legolas said, open quote, "Who left you here, little one?" end quote. And then the baby just cried. And then Legolas picked her up and hold her. And then the baby stopped crying. And then Legolas said, open quote, "Your name is going to be Laura." End quote. And then Legolas and the baby went onto the horse and went back to the castle where he lived. Legolas said, open quote, "Father, mother, I found this little baby in the woods." And then Legolas' mother got up and walked down and said, open quote, "How can people put baby in the wood sand to die?" End quote. Then Legolas' father said, open quote, "We are going to keep her," end quote. And then Legolas was happy for some rising. Wow.
For no apparent reason.
No, I'm leaving Earth for no reason. 10 years later. Time skip. Legolas got up and went into Laura's room and said, open quote, "Good morning," end quote. And then Laura said, "Good morning." Laura said, open quote, "Good morning too," end quote. Then Legolas said, open quote, what's a matter?" end quote. And then Laura said, open quote, "Legolas, I want to know how to ride a horse," end quote. Then Legolas said, open quote, "Okay," close quote. And then Legolas said, open quote, "First you get dresses and have something to eat, and then we will go for a horse ride lesson," end quote. Meanwhile, M-E-A-N, as in it is a very mean while, it is angry at something. Meanwhile, Strider and Gandalf was riding, wow, that's how you spell riding, alright, R-I-D-E-I-N-G, towards where Legolas lived, and then Strider said, open quote, "Gandalf, I did not know where Legolas had a sister," end quote. And then Gandalf said, open quote, "I did not know as well," end quote. Because, you know, Gandalf don't know shit or anything like that. He's not giant white wizard or something. Meanwhile, at Mondor... oh my god. Meanwhile, at Mondor... Say meanwhile, that motherfucker's mean. Weil is a mean motherfucker. The Dark Lord was planning to kidnap the princess, but not Legolas. Because he not gay. Then the boss of the orcs came and said, open quote, "I'll get her for you, sir," end quote. And then the Dark Lord said, open quote, "Yes, you can," end quote. He is apparently a very big fan of Barack Obama and his platforms. Meanwhile, damn, he is mean. Legolas and Laura was horse riding. And then Laura said, open quote, "Legolas, who's that?" end quote. And then Legolas looked and it was Gandalf and Strider. Legolas said, open quote, "That is Gandalf and Strider," end quote. End quote. And then Strider said, open quote, "Legolas," end quote. And then Legolas said, open quote, "Strider, long time seen," end quote. And then Strider said, open quote, "How's you?" end quote. And then Legolas said, open quote, I am fine, end quote. And then Gandalf said, open quote, who's this then? Close quote. And then Legolas said, open quote, meet Laura. I found her in the woods when she was just a baby, end quote. Laura was shy at first, and then Legolas said, open quote, Laura, come meet Strider and Gandalf, end quote. And then Laura said, open quote, hello, I am Laura, end quote.
I hate this so much.
Legolas said, open quote, she is the princess, close quote. And then Strider said, open quote, she is so cute, close quote. And then Legolas said, open quote, this will be my follett, close quote. And then Gandalf said, open quote, why?
Question. Why do you say open and close?
Close quote, because Kaga said to.
You don't have to say open and close anymore.
Thank God, because I'm running out of breath.
Because open quote.
Because open quote, I am tired of saying open quote. Close quote. And then Laura said, he protects me, that's why. And then Legolas looked up and said, I think we should go back to the castle. And then Laura said...
And then...
And then...
And then.
And then Laura said, I can feel it too.
And then.
Legolas said, do you want to stay for a night? And then Gandalf and Strider said, yes, please.
And then.
And then they had tea and went to bed.
And then.
No and then this time. During the night, Legolas and the guards, G-A-R-D-S, however you want to pronounce that, guards, to keep an eye on Laura's room. Meanwhile, damn, that while is fucking an asshole. The orcs, capital O, climbed up the window and grabbed Laura, and then Laura woke up and screamed, and then the guard went into her room and saw lots of orcs, and then they were like, orc, 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 and then Legolas ran down the hall. Then Legolas said, where is Laura? And the guards said, the orcs took her. We didn't really do much. They just kind of really like, orcs, goodbye.
There it go.
There they go, bye. Legolas said,
Hi.
okay. Meanwhile, the orcs was back at Mondor. God damn it. I don't know why Mondor makes me laugh so much.
Because
What
it
is
is
it?
Mondor.
What is it? Mordor's larger brother? Mondor. It's a bigger mountain behind Mordor that nobody saw. It was hiding.
Mondo.
It's Mondor. Meanwhile, the orcs was back at Mondor, and then Laura said, "Pull me down," and then the orcs did. And then the Dark Lord came out of the fire and said, "Welcome, Laura." And then Laura looked at him and said, "No, it can't be." And then she tried to run away, but the orcs got her. Then the Dark Lord said, "Put her into the cell and bet her, and also do whatever you want with her, but do not kill her."
What?
I think he means beat her.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not quite sure. I'm no lord of all evil, but, you know, that sounds like beat to me. Then the orcs took her to the cell and throw her into the cell, and then they shut the door. Laura go up and went to the window and looked out, and she was wishing that Legolas or someone will save her. Meanwhile, back at the castle of Milkwood, Legolas was getting the army ready to go and save Laura. Meanwhile, Laura was sitting on the floor, and then the door opened, and it was some orcs, and the orcs tied Laura with some chains, and then one of the orcs stripped her, and then he raped her, and then Laura said, "Go away, you bastard."
How do I?
Wait, what? Wait, are you making things up, or are you actually?
No, I'll go back.
No.
You read stripped wrong. It said striped.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
Oh, maybe it did. Meanwhile, while Laura was sitting on the floor, and then the door opened. and it was some orcs, and the orcs tied Laura with some chains, and then one of the orcs, they did striped her. They stripped the fuck out of her. The orcs striped her, and then he raped her, and then Laura said, "Go away, you bastard."
Afterwards, huh?
Afterwards, she was polite enough to wait until he has finished. She knows that never say no, just wait until he's done and then say go away. Because he'll be done by now.
You go away now.
Then another orc came with a whip and whipped her hard. And then the orcs all together bet her almost to death. And then the Dark Lord came in with a tube of poison. Tube. He had a tube of it.
It says Posion.
Oh, it is a Posion. A tube of Posion.
Kaga's read this so much, he just knows.
God knows this by heart. Kaga's like, I did my favorite story. Tube of Posion. And then he injected into Laura. Few hours later. Less hours later. Not
How do you
8
spell
few,
this
but
Posion?
just few.
Few hours.
Posion.
That's Posion. If I've ever fucking seen Posion in my entire life, which I haven't until now, I learned a new word.
Posion.
Posion.
The
Poison.
mispronunciation of poison. Posion.
Kaga, this isn't your favorite story. This is your Maple story. You can never escape Maple story. You
Okay.
whore.
Alright, here we go. Legolas and the others was on the way to Mondor to save Princess Laura. Meanwhile, in the cell where Laura was been kept, Laura woke up and she looked on her body. There was blood and scars, and she could only move her right arm, but not her left. Then Laura said, "I feel so cold." And then she can't see very well. At the front gates of Mondor, Legolas and the others, and then they said, "Let Laura go." And then Dark Lord said no. And then Legolas said, "Right, listen, I will climb up to the cell and get Laura, and you and the others will find another way in." Then Strider said, "All right." And then Legolas started to climb up. Meanwhile, Strider and the others ran into Mondor and went into the castle. Gandalf said, "I will go and kill the Dark Lord, and you and the others go help Legolas." Strider and said, "Be careful." And then Gandalf said, "I will, don't worry about me." Meanwhile, Legolas got to the cell where Laura is. Legolas said, "Laura, are you in there?" And then Laura said, "Oh, Legolas, you finally came." Which is coincidentally what she said to the orcs not a few hours earlier. And then Legolas said, "Are you alright?" And then Laura said, "No, I'm not alright." And then Legolas said, "They bet you up and raped you. Also, the Dark Lord gave you the Potion." And then Laura said, "How did you know that?" And Legolas said, "I read the previous chapter." Then Legolas said, "When I was your age, they did the same thing to me." Ew. Then Laura said, "Can you get me out of here?" And Legolas said, "Okay, stand back." And then he ran towards the door and knocked it down. Laura said, "Wow." And then Legolas looked and saw she was covered in blood and scars, and also she was naked. And then Legolas said, "Why, they did it to you, not me." And then the orcs came and said, "Because she got a power and she can destroy us, all the bad guys."
What?
Then the fight began.
What? I feel like do we skip something like the orcs came in the middle of the conversation, right?
And the orcs came and said, "Because she got a power and she can destroy us, all the bad guys."
Okay.
And the fight began. You know, paying attention? The fighting going on. We're in the middle of a fight.
Commence the fighting.
Legolas got out his bow and arrows and started firing at them. Then Legolas saw some swords and said, "Strider, is that you?" And then Strider said, "Yes, it is." And then Legolas and the others started to kill the orcs. Meanwhile, Gandalf is have a fun time trying to destroy the Dark Lord. Gandalf said,
"The story."
What?
It says
Oh,
the
this story. My apologies. This story, the Dark Lord. Gandalf said, "I wish Frodo and Merry and Pippin and Sam was here." Why not? And then a sword came out of nowhere and said, the sword said this, "Some wished us here." And then Gandalf turned and said, "Frodo Baggins, why you doing here?" Then Frodo said, "We came to help you, and also we got rid of the ring." And then the Dark Lord said, "Oh no!" And then the magical powers from Gandalf destroyed the Dark Lord. Meanwhile, Legolas and Strider and the others was helping Laura down, and Strider took off his cape and put it around Laura. Few hours later, Legolas and the others are on the way back to the castle. Legolas said, "We must go to Rivendell to get Laura better." Then Gandalf said, "I think you are right." And then they turned around and went to Rivendell. Legolas looked down on Laura and put his hand onto Laura's head, and she was running up. Strider went aside of Legolas' horse and looked and said, "She is getting worse." I'm sorry, worse. And then Legolas said, "I know." Few hours later, they were at Rivendell, and Legolas stayed by Laura's side every day until she wakes up, and then Legolas kissed Laura on her lips, and then she moved her arms around Legolas, and then Legolas said, "All right, all right?" And then Laura said, "Yes, I am." And Legolas said, "I'm so happy." And then Laura said, "Do you want to be my boyfriend?" And then Legolas said, "Yes, I will be your boyfriend." And then Laura and Legolas kissed again. Laura said, "What happened to me, Legolas?" And then Legolas said, "You got kidnapped by the orcs, and they raped you. And they also bet you almost to death. And then the Dark Lord gave you symposium." And then Laura said, why I can only move on arm." And Legolas said, "Your left arm is broken." Then the door opened and it was Strider. And then Laura said, "Hello, Strider." And then Strider said, "I see you are awake." And then Laura... Yes, story really ends like this. Don't blame me, please. That's the end of it. That's it.
What?
That's it.
What?
Nibbity nigga.
Laura said, "Hello, Strider." And then Strider said, "Alright, I see you are awake." And then Laura...
Hooray!
That's it. And then Laura...
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
And then...
That's it. That's the end.
I already said it's nibbity nigga, alright? We're done with this shit. End recording.